We're talking about sustainable investment. I'm not even sure I understand this, so we'll grab hold of our two experts this evening. Mark Immerman, private equity investor, Lereko Metier Sustainable Capital Fund, and Deon Robbertze, who is the creative director of Ogilvyearth. Now, that fascinated me. Ogilvyearth. When did this is part of Ogilvy, the advertising?
Yes, it is.
When did they create this division?
I know it sounds like a bit of a contradiction. It's an advertising agency that for the last, 50, 60 years has been selling consumers products and been telling them to buy more and more and more. And now we're trying to tell them to buy
less and
wiser
less
and less and less and less. We launched it was launched internationally about 6-7 years ago out of Australia, then to New York and Europe, and we launched it here August last year.
Okay, from a creative and agency point of view, what is sustainability?
I don't know if I want to see it from a creative point of view.
We've only got half an hour.
Okay. We see it as survival. Survival for our clients, survival for our planet, survival for our children. Going forward, I'm willing to bet certain brands won't be on shelves because they didn't follow the sustainable route. If you look at water, electricity, and any of the sustainable structure that holds everything in place, that's under such pressure, certain brands won't be there. If they don't start recycling their packaging, if they don't look at their water consumption, if they don't close the loop, as they call it, on sustainability, those brands won't be bought by clients. There's an interesting fact I want to pull out here. Green household products as a whole grew 71% compared to 2.5% for traditional household products in the States.
Wow, that's
so
a big one.
We're also living in the information age, so people can go check up on your company at a click of a button. Harvard Business Report called it the age of transparency. So consumers can now go look at your brand and your product, and if they don't like what you're doing, they're just going to turn their back on it.
From an investment point of view, Mark, is that what you guys are looking at? Are you looking at specific areas and saying this is where we should be investing in?
Absolutely. Our term is called clean technology, which is sustainable investing.
Okay.
Our focus areas are renewable energy, energy efficiency, water and waste.
So are you cherry picking companies that fit into those areas and investing in them?
Yes, exactly. As a private equity investor, you look to support an existing company. In the case of renewable energy, it's a little bit different because there you have what's termed developments.
Okay.
Renewable energy, once it's built, is effectively a power plant or a power project. But before that stage, it becomes a development, which is a little bit different compared to the traditional private equity model.
Now, shouldn't you two guys be talking then?
Yeah, we should.
Because you are looking at clients and trying to change a mindset, I would imagine.
Yes, and possibly launching new brands and new products within client stables, because there are certain products that just can't be made in a different way. And they're going to have to start looking at new product lines that are done in the correct way. And that's where investment starts coming in.
How big is this slice of the market?
Gargantuan. To give you an idea, renewable energy itself, in South Africa alone, has recently been awarded 18,000 megawatts under the government's integrated resource plan. The first round, which is called the REFIT, Renewable Energy Feed-in Tariff, is limited to 1,025 megawatts, and the total investment there will be in the region of 25 billion rand.
Okay, we're talking money.
Yeah.
And we're talking about adaptability. I mentioned this to you the other day. If you look at construction companies in this country, for the last post-World Cup, they've been having it a bit rough. I think they all reported their worst earnings in a while. But Group 5 have gone out and said, well, okay, we're not just in construction, we can become an electricity provider, and are building a 5 billion rand solar plant. And that's going to be fed into the mines. Now that's adaptability and innovation, and that's where sustainability has to go. With water changing, climate change, you're going to have to be adaptable and innovate. And I think, well done, Group 5.
But now, surely then we should be doing very, very well, because South Africans we can adapt. I mean, hell, look where we were 14 years ago and where we are today.
Yes.
We have that ability to, we're the chameleons of the world, I think. We can...
As long as bureaucracy and old school thinking doesn't bog it down.
Is that still a problem from an investment point of view?
Yes, it is. However, great strides have been made by our government in terms of sustainable thinking. If you look at the sectors of wastewater and renewable energy, we are very progressive. However, this needs to be implemented, and it needs to be implemented very quickly. Your point about adaptability is key, and I think it's a key theme. Effectively, if we don't adapt, our planet is doomed. A good analogy from a book, Hot, Flat and Crowded, with regard to climate change is if you were driving in a car that had very bad brakes amidst deep fog, and you were about to drive off a cliff and you didn't know where the cliff was, would you start applying the brakes? And unfortunately, on a global scale, what we're doing now is foot to the pedal as opposed to the brakes.
And it should be a foot to the brakes and a total change of direction.
Exactly.
Total change of direction. And companies need to start looking and saying, not saying, oh, we're doing CSR, we're doing CSR. CSR you do because you legislated to do it. And some companies say, but that's my sustainability strategy. It's so far off your sustainability strategy. Sustainability is about changing the way you do things and think fundamentally.
Is this a hard sell? Or are investors buying into it? Are you having to push them to buy into these sort of products?
It's actually a bit of both. Clean technology is becoming a mainstream investment theme internationally. However, it's been an ongoing process. I suppose the sector has started becoming more and more investable as governments and communities accept the challenge of sustainability and really put a price to your emissions and to the effect on the climate of your daily behavior. But it's a very recent phenomena. I'd say within the last 2 to 3 years, it's established itself now firmly. But before that, with the short-term corporate thinking, it was more a case of immediate profits as opposed to long-term thinking, and that's a hurdle we need to get over urgently.
I can see you dying to say something here.
Yeah.
Oh, dying to say a lot. No, shareholders are important, and the way we invest shareholders' money is very important. But that can no longer be a short-term view. It's got to become a long-term view. We were reading on the internet this morning, and for the first time in history, a certain country has put Mother Nature and the Earth rights equal to that of a human. And that country is Bolivia. That's history in the making.
Bolivia.
So basically, if Mother Nature, water, land, the air we breathe has the same rights as we do, we're going to start thinking a lot harder before we go put holes in the ground to get some gas out the ground, for instance.
Yeah.
We're going to start thinking a lot more long term and start seeing ourselves as part of the process and not owners of the process.
It's when the process starts unwinding that you realize that you just don't own it.
No, absolutely.
You suddenly realize how insignificant you actually are. It's one of the reasons why I like going to the bush every now and again, because you get into the bush and you realize that when you go on a walk in the bush, you're actually not that important.
No.
There are quite a few things out there that can snack you or trample you or do whatever they want to.
Shark cage diving, can't spy or any of those places, and you quickly realize how insignificant we actually are, although we think we're the masters of everything.
Yeah.
And the sooner we realize we're part of the process and not owners of the process, and start respecting water, respecting the air we breathe, respecting the trees around us, Mother Nature, whatever you want to call it. And if business did that, and imagine if business got all together and wrote the rights of Mother Nature or rights of water, and they all signed it and agreed to that. But pretty much what's in the King 3 report, but
hang on, business is doing that to a certain extent.
Yes, sorry, I don't want to taint them all with the same brush. I'm just saying
there are a lot of businesses who are doing that.
My concern is the shift is too slow and not big enough.
How do your investment instruments work?
Well, it's an equity investment.
Okay.
Sometimes a mezzanine instrument, which is a mixture between equity and debt. But primarily, private equity is always equity being injected into partner companies. I think an important point to make is, as a private equity house, looking at sustainable investing, it means that finally there's a business case for the sector, which is critically important for the entire market.
Yeah.
You know, there are discussions internationally at the moment regarding global carbon tax. Everyone knows about Kyoto and carbon credits, and interestingly, the next carbon meeting is taking place in Durban in November of this year. So
Yeah.
South Africa has always been instrumental in these discussions, and we're actually hosting a global event where the world is literally running out of time to reach a binding agreement and arrest the effects of climate change.
But realistically, do you see,
17th talks on the same issue.
yeah, I was going to say, realistically, do you see anything happening here?
As the cliche goes, Mother Nature preaches, she doesn't teach. And you've seen a barrage of international disasters.
Age of change. Yeah.
Exactly. Which are linked to climate change. Some people will disagree with that, but the evidence is overwhelming. People eventually will have to take it seriously. Whether we reach agreement in Durban in November, I certainly hope we do. It will be a difficult sell considering the complexity and the different I suppose, motivations of the countries that are represented. But it's important that something's done and something is done soon.
There's logic behind it. If you do it, you increase brand value, you increase shareholding value. It's better for the planet. It's better socially. You'll get. It's win. There's nothing.
Okay, I hear what both of you are saying. If it's win, why are businesses not buying into it?
Because it's going to cost them initially. But it's like an investment. Wait for it to mature and you'll see the maturity. Here, 2.7 trillion has been invested in SRIs in the States. It's 11% of all money. Socially responsible investments.
Okay. So how much?
$2.7 trillion.
Jeez,
and that's growing.
They could have got themselves out of their crisis.
No, but I'm saying it's not a trend. It's not a trend. Overseas is 5 years, I don't know, five years ahead of us on this?
Yes, potentially, but at the same time...
we can play catch up pretty quick.
Exactly, it's an interesting point. As a developing country, we almost have the ability to fast forward the developed nations.
Yep.
You look at America, which is by far the largest consumer of carbon energy. For them to reverse that trend is enormously expensive and complicated. In South Africa, and this has been certainly recognized by the government, who have awarded 43% of our new electricity up till 2030 to renewables. That's an enormous proportion.
I want to come back to that point because I want to start looking at how important it is for a government to be involved and what government's involvement should be.